do I deal with secondary trauma that the other kids in my home experience?
I would even expand that question. How do I deal with secondary trauma that the other kids experience, and how do I deal with secondary trauma that I've experienced? I was a foster parent for 5.5 years, and I know that as caregivers, we have a lot to manage because we have to manage the secondary trauma that other children in our home feel, whether they're other foster children, birth children, or adopted children, because they're going to experience a lot. Foster care is not for the faint of heart. And then, as a caregiver, we're managing a child with behavioral or mental health needs, and we're also managing children that may be being traumatized. So what does that do to us? What does that do for us? Oftentimes, caregivers will end up basically blowing out their own circuits and becoming traumatized themselves because they end up running at this constant level of anxiety all the time. So let's start with the kids, and then I'm going to come back to the adult piece of that because I think that's equally as important. The first thing is we want to create, again, a safe environment as much as possible. So helping kids understand, first of all, the trauma that the child with the behavioral or mental health or medical needs are going through. Helping them understand that this is not a way that they are trying to intentionally harm other people, but that this is a way that they're communicating all of their hurts. We use the word internal boo-boos. It's a way that they're communicating all of those internal boo-boos. Sometimes it's coming up with a plan. So, for example, if you have a child that rages, having a plan for the other kids. This is really scary to see when Jane over here is having a rough day. How about when they're having a rough day, why don't you go up to your room quietly, and then when we're done, we'll talk about it. So giving them a plan and an out so that they don't have to be there and experience all of it. Validate the safety of it. We're doing everything we can as a family to figure this out. This is how she's expressing her internal boo-boos right now, and we want to help her to feel safe. And after the fact, giving the family the opportunity to talk about it. So when we were fostering, one of the things that, and we do this common practice in our family, it actually started just to have some type of non-chaos at dinner time because we have a lot of kids, is we ask a question every night. And we go around and everybody answers that question. And sometimes there's goofy questions and sometimes there's serious questions. But if you start out with the goofy questions, then you have an opportunity for the more serious questions. So we've asked everything from like, what's the most imaginative thought that you've had today? Or what's the most, what's an embarrassing experience that you had? What has been the best part of your day? What's your favorite car? What's your favorite movie or song? When you have a system like that in place and there's a bad day, then you can go around and talk about what was your experience of what happened today. And this is already a norm that you have in the family. So for our family, that worked at dinner time. For other families, that might be something that you do in the morning if you sit as a family together in the morning. It's a time that you have as a family set aside. Sometimes it means just sitting down as a family and saying, hey, something big happened today. Let's talk about what that experience was like. The caveat to that is we don't want to create shame for the child that had the rage. This isn't an opportunity to blame. This isn't an opportunity to create shame. So it's not about what did this child do. What it is there was something big that happened today, and as a family we're going to talk about it. We're going to process that event and what happened today. For the caregiver, that means an ability to understand what's happening for you, for the caregiver in that rage. When a child rages, are you able to take a step back, take some deep breaths, take the opportunity to calm yourself and say, I can go into this with a level head? Or is that rage creating a lot of anxiety, and even after the rage, that anxiety just stays up here? If that's where, as a caregiver, we're at, we've got to figure out what's going on for us. We've got to figure out why this is becoming so anxiety-provoking. For some caregivers, it can be because they have a past history of their own trauma. And we get into a really dangerous road when a child's trauma now is mingling with our own past history of trauma. And if it becomes this mingle, we can't be present to help that child effectively. And we're increasing our likelihood of becoming traumatized more ourselves. And if we get to that point, that's the time when we need to say, maybe I need to get my own counseling. Maybe I need to seek some support outside of the home to figure this out. If it's not this mingling of past experiences or past trauma, which oftentimes it likely is, or maybe it is a mingling of past trauma, but we're able to say, I recognize what's going on here and I have the ability to regulate. We want to use those regulation skills. We need to make sure that we're spending time doing mindfulness activities. We need to make sure that we're taking time to take care of ourselves. A lot of foster parents are helpers. That's what they do. They like to help people. I would equate it to the oxygen mask in the airplane. When we get on the airplane, the flight attendant, the first thing they do, if you have a child with you, when those masks drop, you put it on yourself and then you put it on the child. Because if you have no oxygen, you are ineffective to that child. And so we need to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves. I know that foster parents want to help. I know that is their heart to help everybody. But we've got to have good boundaries in that and saying, but I've got to take care of myself, because if I'm not breathing, I can't help the rest of my kids in my house breathe.